Thank you very much. I know it's a bit late, but I hope that you all had a lovely festive season, and Happy New Year to you all. Thank you very much. A few notices. No fire alarm test is planned, but should the fire alarm sound, please leave the room at your nearest exit and meet in front of the grandstand. At the bottom of the car park, I should say. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak and stay seated when speaking. Please wait until a boom microphone is brought to you. You will not be heard on live stream otherwise. Wear masks at all times unless you are seated. Keep points short, and I ask members not to repeat points that have already been raised. And voting will be by a show of hands. Should the meeting be adjourned, any filming must cease unless the express permission of those being filmed has been obtained. Thank you. Right, could I have apologies for absence, please?
I have Councillors Austin, Foden, Hayes, Haynes, Jeffries, Piat, Linda Petherick, Parker Khan, Toome and Eden.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. We can move on to item 2, which is the minutes. Could I have a proposer for the minutes, please? Councillor Nutley.
Hugh Cox, he was going to be late.
Has he not arrived yet?
Well, I don't know.
He has arrived. He's in the corner. Thank you, Councillor Nutley. Right, the minutes. Could I have a proposal regarding the minutes, please? Acceptance of the minutes. Councillor Nutley. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Taylor. Thank you very much. Could I go to the show of hands, please? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Right, I have a few announcements to make on item 3. On behalf of the Council, I would like to congratulate 2 residents from Teignbridge, Brian Smith and Dr. Jill Diprose, who have both been recognised with a British Empire Medal in the New Year's Honours List. Brian Smith for services to the community in Newton Abbot, particularly during COVID-19, and Dr. Jill Diprose for services to families of children with special needs in Dawlish. I would also like to congratulate Kareem Hassan, the Chief Executive of Exeter City Council, who was awarded an MBE. Congratulations to them. I would also like to bring to members' attention the West Bank Community Health and Care, who have been awarded the Queen's Award for Voluntary Services, which was presented by Her Majesty's Lord Lieutenant of Devon recently. Another notice, on Thursday the 6th of January 2022, an appointment remuneration panel met to consider a complaint made by Councillor Patch against Paul Woodhead, namely that he had breached the officer's code of conduct. Having considered the information presented to it, which included Council's opinion, that's legal counsel's opinion, the panel unanimously determined that no breach of the officer's code of conduct had occurred. Consequently, no further action is required. As requested by the panel, I inform the Council that the estimated cost of dealing with this complaint in terms of officer time. Councillor McGregor, what breach is it? Is it a procedure breach?
Yes, essentially. What we're seeing here with the decision to announce, is a breach of the protocol, I believe, and the breach of the Nolan principles. This is a decision that was requested by one of the councillors at the meeting, with a view to naming and shaming a councillor over the costs and to silence councillors from making legitimate complaints in their view. And I don't believe that we should announce the cost. You know, it comes down to a question of whether or not we want to have a free and open democracy in this council. If we don't want to have a free and open democracy in this council, then we should say so now, and we should then name and shame people on things like this. The councillor concerned made a legitimate complaint in his view. To announce it as specifically related to this particular complaint is an attempt to shame that councillor and then silence potentially other councillors from coming forward. And I don't believe we should announce that figure. If people want to establish the, if people want to check the figure, then they can apply for it through Freedom of Information.
Yeah, this is my announcement, Councillor McGregor. I don't believe that to be a point of order. I think that to be a speech. So I'm sorry, I'm going to carry on with the announcement as it stands. As requested by the panel, I inform the Council that the estimated costs of dealing with this complaint in terms of officer time and the necessary external legal report amounted to the figure of 6,130. That's all I want to say. It's a statement, and we'll carry on. What breach?
I'd like to exercise my right to reply, as was exercised at the last meeting of this council.
This is an announcement.
I would like to exercise my right to reply, as was exercised by the leader of the council at the last public meeting of this full council.
I'm sorry, we're going to move on.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out that this is in keeping with a pattern of behaviour at this council, where you spend money on council advice to prosecute a vexatious complaint against me, while at the same time spending money on legal counsel to shield a statutory officer from investigation.
Councillor Patch, I'm going to ask you a final time. Could you cease, please? This was an announcement for information only, and that's where it's going to stand. Thank you.
It will stand here for the council. It will be taken forward outside.
I'm going to move on, please. Councillor Patch, this is the last time, please.
Well, okay.
Thank you.
Carry on. Please carry on.
Right. Could I now move on, please, to next item, which is declarations of interest? Are there any declarations of interest? Cannot see any, so fine, we'll move on. We now move on to item 5, which is the council tax base for 2022-23. Could I ask the Executive Member for Corporate Service to move the recommendation? That's Councillor Keeling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, first may I thank Martin Flintcroft, our Chief Financial Officer, and his team for producing the council tax base. We are here to consider the proposed council tax base 2022 to 23 as recommended by the Executive at its meeting on the 4th of January 2022, as shown in Appendix A. We have also had a briefing for towns and parishes on the 16th of December 2021, and subsequently we've had recommendations from Overview and Scrutiny 1 on the 10th of January 2022 and Overview and Scrutiny 2 on the 11th of January 2022. I thank the chairmans and the members of those committees who provided many questions which we have replied to. It is important that members look through the proposals, including the setting of our tax base for the next year, which is a very important number for the towns and parishes that we represent, and ensure we establish a realistic number. Ensure we establish a realistic number for them in terms of setting their precepts. Can I advise all members that we have not yet received a significant number of town and parish precept requests, with the deadline of 31st of January 2022. To be straight, if they don't put their requests in, we won't collect the precept. So please remind your ward, town and parish councils. Mr. Chairman, I propose the council resolves to approve the council tax base of 49,633 for the 2022-23 at Appendix A of the agenda report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, seconded. Thank you very much, Councillor Collett. Thank you very much. Can we go to the vote, please? All those in favour that we accept the council tax base, 49,633? Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is carried. That's passed at the council tax base 49,633. Thank you very much. Right. We now have a number of public questions. I do mean a number, some in the order of 20. So I believe, first of all, we have 2 questions from Mallory. You've been given written answers. Is she here? Can I see if she's here or not? Yeah, right, thank you. You have had 2 replies to your questions. Have you a supplementary to your first question, please?
Yeah, thank you for your reply. I do want to ask an additional question, but before I do, I just want to ask about the vote of no confidence.
Sorry, what are you referring to there?
About the vote of no confidence. The public vote of no confidence and the...
Look, this is a question which is supplementary to your original question. There's no further discussion in any other area. It is a supplementary to your existing question.
Yeah, and we're the public, and you will ask this question, answer this question. Thank you. When and how and by whom was the risk assessment provided by central government, evaluated, and on what basis was the subsequent decision to allow and promote the COVID-19 vaccines made? Could you answer, please?
It's not really a question for us. Councillor Connett, would you like to comment? Councillor Connett here, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We'll provide a written response in due course.
Thank you. Your question number 2, you've had a written response. Have you a supplementary to question 2?
Excuse me. That is the question 1. Could I have an answer, please?
That was the answer. Would you like to repeat it?
That's not an answer, thank you.
Chairman, I've just said we'll provide a written response in due course. Thank you.
We would like an answer now, please.
Well, the leader is quite within his rights to give you a written response at a later date, and he has promised he will do that, and he will do that. Okay, so in respect of your question 2, please, could I have a supplementary if you have one?
This one. We must have a clearly laid out, precise response to the questions. This response should show which council services were not provided from the start of the pandemic, during what period of time, and the cost saving of this non-provision so to show to where these saved funds were directed and provide clear reasons for this redirection. Thank you.
Councillor Connett.
Chairman, I would refer the questioner to the most recent updates to the finances of the council as published by the executive. They are available on the council's website for all public to view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's your replies to your questions. Thank you very much. Could I move on now to the next questioner? I'm not sure whether she's here or not. Mia Stalsted, I believe that is it. She's not here. So she has had 2 questions. They've both been given written answers, so there is no supplementaries as she's not present. Can we move on, please, to the next question, please? Please. That is not an item of this question.
Vote of no confidence.
We are not
here
going
today.
Please, can you take the microphone away, please? Yeah. We're moving on to the next question, which is, please, could you refrain, please? You've had questions, supplementary questions. They've been answered, maybe not to your satisfaction, but please, they have been answered. Now, we are moving on to the next question. Could I ask you to be seated, please? Please. please, could you refrain? This is going to be the final warning. You know what will happen next. If you don't sit down, please. Thank you. Thank you. Could we move on to the next questioner, please? Michelle Gibbons? Is Michelle Gibbons here? Is Michelle Gibbons here? She has 3 questions. She's not here, so she's had 3 questions, written responses, so she's not here to do supplementaries. We had 2 questions from Claire Pollard next, and she's not present, I understand, so she's had written answers, so there's no supplementaries. Is there a Jenny Daly here? She has 3 questions. Jenny Daly? Doesn't look as if she's here either. She had 3 questions with written answers, so there's no supplementaries. We're going well with this. Richard Westwell. Richard Westwell, is he here? Doesn't look as if he's here, so we are moving on well. So once again, he said a written reply and no supplementary. Simon Baxter. I was told he was going to be here. Simon Baxter. We're really doing well. There were 3 questions from Simon Baxter was going to be present, but he's not, so there is no supplementaries there. Lynn, please could I ask you to desist? Is there a Lynn Baxter here? Lynn Baxter? Ooh. No, we're none of the questioners here. And the final one, we've gone through this pretty quick because there was no supplementary questions. Christine Scudder, the final one, Christine Scudder. Once again, those public questions went through. Thank you very much. That's the end of the public questions. Please. I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask you it again. Please sit down. Please sit down. That is not something that is relevant to this council. If you want to take that further, you need to go outside of this body. Please sit down. Please sit down. I'm moving on now. Please sit down. I'm sorry. Last chance. If you do not sit down, we will be adjourning the meeting. Right. We're going to adjourn the meeting. Right. Welcome back. Thank you very much. I hope we can continue this in a normal manner, please. In view of the interruption, I'm going to move one of the items on the agenda. So I'd like to bring forward item 9 to this next item, which is the Den Timmouth Play Area refurbishment. So if I could come to the item now, and I could go to the executive measure, a member for Leisure and Green Spaces. That's Councillor Nutley, please. Councillor Nutley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not too close. As you say, obviously the refurbishment of the Den. Purpose of the report is to seek approval for capital expenditure of 280k community infrastructure levy and 106 funding to refurbish play provision at the Den Timmouth. As we all know, the Den Play Park in Timmouth and Decoy in Newton Abbot are the 2 outstanding play and recreation areas we have in the district. They attract thousands of visitors a year, both local and from the wider communities, and from visiting families that come on holiday, which also boosts the economy of the local areas. For Teambridge to be able to put forward a plan to redevelop the Den Play Park, and not only that, for parents to knowing their children will be safe in that there are 3 different age group play areas, 1 for youth, 1 for juniors, and 1 for toddlers, will I'm sure bring more families to enjoy the Den and the local area. We are pushing hard to bring this plan to fruition with the ambitious timescale to have it in place for the coming summer season. The Council maintains its green flag and blue flag status for Timmouth Seafront, both highly prized quality awards. This play area improvement will ensure these awards in the future. The funding for this exciting proposal is from 106 and community infrastructure level contributions, demonstrating the benefits from development in the local area and the wider district. I therefore ask that the committee receives 1. Approve capital expenditure of 280K to be funded from SIL and 106 contributions for refurbishment works as outlined in this report for the play area at the Den Timmouth. 2. Delegate authority to the Head of Operational Services in consultation with the Chief Finance Officer and Executive Member for Leisure, Recreation and Culture to accept the most economical, advantageous tender for the works. I therefore propose the committee approve the recommendations of the capital expenditure of 280K for the refurbishment of the Den Park in Timmouth, and ask for someone to second the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We've got a number of seconders there. To take your pick. Councillor McGregor, Councillor Collett, Councillor Keeling. Thank you very much, Councillor Nutley. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? That's carried, I believe, unanimously. Thank you very much, Councillor Nutley. Councillor McGregor. Make a comment. Make it brief.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to say this is a long-awaited refurbishment of the Den Play Park. It was delayed because of COVID. Decoy was delayed a year, and then the subsequent further delay of a year for Decoy. Having worked previously with the operations officers, it was good to see it coming to council finally. I believe that the intention is to have it completed by the end of May, around the beginning of June, so that will be in time for the summer season. And all I would say is that would the portfolio holder for open spaces please keep us informed of any potential delays that crop up in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. I'm sure Councillor Nutley will do that. Councillor Phipps.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm fully in favour of this proposal, and I think it would be a fantastic thing for Timmouth, but I have got a concern about the possibility of delays bringing this to fruition. If it looks like we are going to be running late and this work is not going to be completed on or about the time that it's stated, I think it was June or July, and we're going to be running into August, would be better then to hold fire and get everything organised ready for next year. So it's either put our foot on the gas and get it done quick as possible, or if it's looking like it's not going to happen through the summer, it's worth considering delaying this till next year, even though I would really like to see it done in time for the summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the Managing Director would like to make a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to confirm for members, we are aiming to get it completed for June, prior to the summer holidays for the children and for the main summer season. Of course, we will keep you updated through the members' newsletter of any problems. We don't envisage any at the moment, but potentially, given the building industry and the issues where there are in supply of materials, we can't foresee that yet. Given the approval today, we will advance the project as quickly as possible, getting a contractor on board and just understanding their construction timetable. However, we are still aiming for early June.
Thank you. I have Councillor Bullivant, then Councillor Cox. Councillor Bullivant here.
Thank you very much. This development is extremely welcome, and it's great to see Timmouth being invested in. Two questions, please. One, adjacent to this facility are the toilets as part of the underneath the Beachcomber Cafe. The Beachcomber Cafe approvals said that those toilets are going to be removed and integrated within the Beachcomber Cafe. There was no date there for the replacement or reinstatement of those toilets. This play area with children it's going to be essential that there are public facilities adjacent to it. I'd like at some stage to be told the timescales for replacing those toilets. And I appreciate it's not part of this application, but I'd appreciate that as a clarification. Secondly, it's noted that a significant amount of the funds for this is coming from SIL. How much of that SIL is actually generated through developments in Timmouth, and how much is generated from either Newton Abbot or Dawlish or other areas of Tunbridge? Again, could that be responded to in writing, please, at some stage? Thank you.
That will be responded in writing. I think, Councillor Connaught, did you want to come? No, that's fine. So that will be responded, and you will be kept informed regarding that, Councillor Bullivant. Okay. Councillor Cox.
This is a very welcome development for Timmouth. It will help our economy, but I think there was a survey done, and the majority of Tunbridge residents for their leisure go to Timmouth, actually, to Timmouth seafront. Along with the decarbonisation grant that will enable Broadmeadow and the Lido to function now and function for the future, because obviously gas will be phased out in 2030. It's a great thing. Unfortunately, Councillor Bullivant, and I need to declare an interest, I'm a member of Timmouth Town Council. Timmouth Town Council does the public toilets in Timmouth, and they are going to be put under under what used to be the aquarium, and hopefully the timing will effectively mean that as the Beachcomber toilets close, the new ones will open. But the Timmouth Town Council is the appropriate authority for public loos in Timmouth. We spend £1 of every £1 out of every 5 we collect on public toilets, and we've closed none. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Patch.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to raise a point of order. I believe it's the procedure...
Which point of order, which breach?
On the procedure for determining items. I believe it's customary to have a debate on an item prior to taking a vote on that item. We've had a vote on the item, and now we're having a debate on it, which seems to be the wrong way round to me. Can you make an effort, please, to keep us to the correct procedures?
That is noted. Thank you very much. Right. So we've had a vote. That's... been accepted, so if we can now move on to next item. Oh, sorry, didn't see your hand. Councillor Hocking.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Apologise.
Seeing we didn't have a debate, I just got one question on 2.3 under risks. It says there that the Ashburton Road, and I'm assuming it's the Ashburton Road play area in Newton Abbot, is coming to its life. Does this mean that we're spending $280,000 in Timmouth and this will be left behind? Or will there be money to upgrade this play facility as well? Because this one also is used very widely. Thank you.
I think it's already been completed, but Councillor Connaught, would you like to? In the front here, Councillor Connaught.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Hocking might like to look at the last executive where approval of 150,000 for Ashburton Road Play Park was confirmed, and that's got all the details in the report. So any Newton Abbot member might like to look at that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to Councillor Connaught. Did you note that, Councillor Hocking? Thank you. Councillor McGregor here in the front, please.
I just wanted to finish off with a thank you to the officers that have produced the designs and the plan, and look forward to seeing the play park completed by the end of June.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Councillor McGregor. Councillor Clarence.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I ask, please, what happens to the old equipment that is being pulled out of the play park at Timmouth? Because a lot of it seems pretty good to me. The thing that isn't working at Timmouth is the water squirter at the moment, isn't it? But someone did make a flippant comment to me. You can employ somebody over there for about £25,000 a year to squirt a hose pipe at the kids. But anyway, we'll come back to my original question. What's happened to the old equipment, some of which is very good, and probably some of it is far better that's being pulled out of there than what we have at Shawlton. Is there going to be any use of the old equipment, and could you keep us informed of whether it might be any use to us at our rather run-down play park, which we're trying to do something about in Shawlton? Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Connaught has a response.
Chairman, if it was fit for purpose, we probably wouldn't be replacing it. But in all of our play parks, for example, at Star Cross recently, the local parish council asked if they might be able to have play equipment which might possibly move due to a development, and certainly the council was happy to support that where the equipment was fit for further use. So no doubt officers will have made note of Councillor Clarence's comment, and if any equipment is available and suitable and fit to be used elsewhere, we'll make sure councillors know about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that's the end there. We can now move on to resume the agenda. Item 7. Oh, right. This is a recommendation from Audit Scrutiny, and the Chair of Audit Scrutiny is Councillor Morgan with her hand up.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendation from the Audit Scrutiny Committee that we accept the invitation to opt into the National Scheme for Auditor Appointments from April 2023. This will be for the following 5-year period, and it's an opt-in for an external auditor. There are no additional significant financial or legal implications. The current costs to us are already £59,000 per annum. The full report can be found on the 27th of October Audit Scrutiny agenda. The main risk is if we do not opt into this, we'd have to make our own arrangements, and there's a significant risk that there would be no take-up and we would have no external auditor. The rest of the English councils and authorities, local authorities, have been offered this invitation, and I would like to move the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bullivant. Are there any comments? I think Councillor Patch has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Councillor Morgan, or anybody else, maybe an officer who can answer, about the implications of what we're voting for. The external auditor, what sort of powers do they have, for instance, in terms of investigating wrongdoing within the council? And are there any implications as going down this path and another path in terms of the opportunity to scrutinise this council?
Councillor Morgan, would you like to?
Our current external auditor is Grant Thornton, and they focus on financial issues and risks and issues that we take. I don't think they focus on other more procedural issues. I think maybe, I don't know if Martin Flitcroft can answer more fully than me. He's over there.
Could we have Mr. Flitcroft?
Well, I think perhaps either myself or the Section 151 officer can probably help a little bit in terms of the role of Grant Thornton is not only the financial audit, but also it's on risk and governance and the way that we conduct business. I don't think their remit is to look at officer behaviour. You have a set of guidelines that are both national and in terms of our code of conduct, but I don't know if Martin can expand on that.
Yeah, so this recommendation is purely around the financial audit, and the remit of this national scheme is just purely to look at the financial audit of our accounts, value for money that they do as part of that process, and also the housing benefit audit that is carried out every year. And that's the sole scope of this particular recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Flitcroft. Thank you. With no further speakers, we've had a proposal from the Chair, Councillor Morgan, and it's been seconded by Councillor Bullivant. Can we go to the vote, please? All in favour? Against? Abstentions? That is one abstention. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on the agenda now, and this is to item 8, which is the recommendation from Executive, notice of motion, and the leader to present this notice of motion. That's Councillor Connaught here in the front, please, with the microphone.
Thank you, Chairman. I know the arguments for continuing or enabling virtual meetings have been well rehearsed, both in this chamber previously and outside. So I'm going to be brief. The executive supported the notice of motion from the last council meeting, and in principle, council is seeking the power, if it wishes to use it, to hold virtual meetings, both in times of pandemic, such as we've had and have, but also because what the virtual meetings experience showed us is that it actually facilitates a wide range of members being able to be councillors, people who might have full-time work or other commitments, enabling to join meetings and participate fully virtually from where they are, rather than have to travel in. And in a rural district like Teignbridge, that can be a real help, where people don't have to travel in from the far extremes. If you take that up to the county council level, people who might well represent areas, say, in Ilfracombe or Barnstable, travelling into Exeter for a council meeting. Virtual meetings are the way ahead. We're all looking at ways in which we can minimise travel. And so I think the recommendation from executive, supporting a modern way of working, encouraging a wide variety of people to be able to stand and be councillors, to attend meetings, participate fully, Chairman, as well as to give the council power to hold virtual meetings if there were an instance such as a pandemic, and to keep people safe. So, Chairman, I invite council's support for the notice of motion and the recommendation set out in the agenda today. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor McGregor? No? Okay. Seconded by Councillor Dewhurst. Thank you. Councillor McGregor, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I appreciate the move to virtual meetings is very convenient and it helps deal with situations like this, my concern would be that there would need to be, and I would like this inserted as an addition to the motion, that there would need to be a full set of regulations and constitutional matters connected with virtual meetings that we don't have currently. My concern particularly lies around silencing people who are on the meeting, who have points to make in a virtual meeting environment, particularly on Zoom, where the host can silence, and also members of the public getting access to council meetings, which would also be a concern. So if we're going to move to virtual meetings, then I would think there's a fairly large amount of work involved in preparing a constitutional basis for it within the council, assuming we back this proposal.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McGregor. I see someone's hand up. I can't quite see who it is. Oh, it's Councillor Hook.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope that we're pushing on an open door here, because it's incredibly sensible to take the measures that the leader has proposed, and I, for one, give it 100% support, and everything he said makes good sense. I would add, if he or others would consider it appropriate, that we encourage the leader, and this may be an amendment or maybe just something to add to what is already there, that the leader also encourages via the LGA or by any other acceptable means all local authorities to take similar actions to the one that he and we are now proposing. Let's embrace modern technology. Let's do so enthusiastically. Let's look at all the possible gains that there are, and neither he nor I want to outline those again, but saving time, energy, climate change benefits, lots of good reasons for doing exactly what is proposed. But it would be encouraging to think that Teignbridge could lead the way in a national campaign to get this government to see sense and agree to what is proposed. So I'd like to suggest that we add that little rider, or maybe an amendment, to what's proposed, that via the LGA, or as I say, any other appropriate means, we encourage all local authorities to take similar action. Thank you.
Right, I've got a number of people who want to speak. Councillor Bullivant was the next one in the front here.
Thank you. Whilst I appreciate the sentiments behind this proposal, my concerns emanate from the fact that what we're looking at is what's convenient for councillors and not necessarily for the convenience of the people who are electing councillors. We have to be very careful that we're not opening the door to abuse of the system. And whilst I appreciate the benefits that can come through it through proper regulation. We have to be careful about undue influence. We have to be careful about people behind the screen exerting that influence. We have to be careful that public aren't excluded from discussions. Having face-to-face meetings where decisions are going to be taken is a safeguarding system that protects the integrity of the decisions we make. So I'd endorse the concept of the idea, subject to it having adequate controls to be able to make sure that the process cannot be abused. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woodland. Councillor Dawes, at the back there, please.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to, if he was actually put forward as an amendment, second Councillor McGregor's amendment, and I suppose that echoes Councillor Bullivant's concerns that this is used correctly and implemented correctly and isn't abused in any way. And I think the point taking on from Councillor Hook as well is that, of course, there are huge climate change issues in this in terms of the impact that these meetings have. I know we're saving money today by having zero heating on, which is fairly laughable, but looking at the car park outside, there's an awful lot of cars driven here and an awful lot of people who haven't really said much, so I think there are merits. I doubt very much that we're the only council in the country thinking about this, but hopefully a change will be made and it can be regulated. So I'd like to second the amendment if indeed it was put forward as an amendment. Thank you.
Okay. It was an amendment, I believe, wasn't it, Councillor McGregor? Yes, okay. I think Councillor Patch.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's, in terms of the amendment, I think it's a good idea that this be thought through. But just for clarification, I believe my understanding of this is this is not a decision that we're able to make to move towards these meetings, hybrid or remote meetings. I think this is a request to government. But I do have concerns, echoing Councillor Bullivant's points, about what might go on behind the scenes at meetings. And I think we've seen within one of the meetings that we've had on Zoom, one member managing another member in terms of their participation in a meeting. This is a point of record, it's on the video. So I think there's lots to think through here, and I think I would be very worried about a move to a situation where the public cannot be present when decisions are being made about them. And so I don't think we are quite pushing against an open door in terms of the case presented by Councillor Hook. And I'd also like to also reflect on Councillor Dawes' point. A lot of people have driven here and will sit here and say nothing, and as happens at many full council meetings. So I think maybe if those members who aren't going to say anything, they might want to sit at home on a computer screen, but ensure that those people who want to participate in a debate and allow the public to attend, then we do have actual physical attendance.
Okay. Right, next I think Councillor Malone, you had your hand up.
Hi, thank you. I think that in this sort of thing, then of course we should have dispensation for those that are frail, those that are perhaps older in years, and those who are disabled. Of course we should have dispensations for these people, but in terms of a general move towards technology, call me a cynic, but I don't think it has very much to do with technology, not in terms of what I've seen in this council over the last year or so. I think what this represents most of all is a flight from transparency and a flight from having to deal with the troublesome public who are just such a bother, aren't they? But sadly are part of a democracy and something that we should be facing rather than pushing everything even more into small rooms with small cliques of people. I wouldn't. This is an open door over an abyss, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, Councillor Dewhurst.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to support this motion. I think it's really important. Something that hasn't been mentioned, of course, so far is the issue of the fact that we are in the middle of a raging pandemic. we are in the middle of a raging pandemic. That is my view, and that is the view of the government. And the safety of everybody concerned would be greatly increased by holding online meetings. As far as those who benefit from holding meetings online, it's not just councillors. There have been numerous questions this morning, some of which were not actually the people who made those questions weren't here. If they were able to come in online, they probably would have been. And certainly during the period when we were holding meetings in this council and at Devon County Council, participation was much, much greater by both councillors and the public. And frankly, I don't believe that democracy is served by representatives of the people being shouted down by small cliques at public meetings. Thank you.
Councillor Wrigley.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I have exactly the same view as Councillor Dewhurst. There was a meeting of Dawlish Town Council yesterday evening, and we have a small number of people turn up to town councils. We had an increasing number of people who were watching it when it was on Zoom and broadcast live. In fact, we had somebody last night say they weren't going to turn up anymore because it was cold, because we had the ventilation. They couldn't hear because people were wearing masks, and they didn't like it, and they wished it had gone back onto Zoom. I think putting the meetings online gives greater transparency, greater inclusion from the public, and makes it much more open. We should do it.
Thank you, Councillor Wrigley. Councillor Swain.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the amendment. I do agree in principle with the idea of the amendment that if we were to have council meetings in the long term online, we would need obviously to have rules of debate that make that workable. However, this original motion is not, we're not deciding here today to start having virtual meetings again. We're deciding that the council would like to and to campaign for that to happen. And as such, I don't think the amendment is needed. I think it would cloud the issue, the central issue, which is that we have to persuade central government to make laws which make this possible. So I would vote against the amendment. I'm very much in favour of the motion. I think virtual meetings does make it easier for people to join in council work and to become councillors, and I think it opens up democracy. It is not a flight from democracy in my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swain. Councillor McGregor, if you would like to restate, I know you want to speak again, but if you would like to restate what your amendment was, so we can actually clarify the situation.
Thank you, Chair. It was just really actually to clarify the point, actually. My amendment is around that we add into our request to the Ministry of Housing, Local Government and Communities that we will indeed put in place a constitutional process and regulations for holding virtual meetings and hybrid meetings so that it can't be abused. My concern, obviously, and responding to Councillor Swain's point, is that whilst we are putting a motion forward, should the ministry come back and say, yes, let's go, we would instantly find that we're holding virtual meetings without the framework in place to do it properly. And I think getting the agreement to put in that place before we get to that is an important step for the council to show that we are transparent and that we are handling things in a proper, professional manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Dawes, you seconded that. Are you happy with that explanation? Yep, that's fine. So we don't think... Councillor Connett, would you like to do a reply?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm really grateful to all of the colleagues for their comments, and I appreciate the point that Councillor McGregor and his supporters have made about the possible abuse. Let me just talk to that, if I may. This is about, if you look at the high-level principle about councillors being allowed to have virtual meetings. As I understand it, one of the issues that governments say they can't do that at the moment is because it would need change to primary legislation. It needs new legislation. So it's not that council are going to write this week and then next week get a phone call from Whitehall to say, yes, carry on. It needs primary legislation. The legislation which affects us at the moment is the 1972 Local Government Act, but there are a range of other legislations. So, for example, licensing committees could meet virtually. Some councils are doing that because it's a different legislation. So I describe it as tired legislation. There's a bit of a mix which came about for the right reasons at different times, but looking at it now, some councils have clearly found different ways to go about organising meetings. So for me, this isn't simply about the pandemic and whether you think there's a pandemic or not. It's simply about a modern way of working. I think the point that Councillor McGregor and colleagues make about the potential of abuse is one which is well made and well understood. I agree, though, with Councillor Swain. It should not be part of this motion, because if we're going to have primary legislation, one would expect all councils to be consulted about how that might work, the Local Government Association to be consulted, and for that to go through a proper process of consideration, not an overnight change in law, Chairman. So what I'm asking Council to do is support the recommendations set out at 1, 2 and 3. If we can persuade the government to give time for change to primary legislation, then we can go through the next stage of, well, what does a virtual meeting look like? What's permitted, what's not permitted? And to pick up the very points that Councillor McGregor and others have made, Chairman. So it's a process in a couple of stages, and I invite Council to support 1, 2 and 3 as set out without amendment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Connett. Well, as we did, Councillor Patch.
Thank you, Chair. I just think what's lacking from this debate is an informed review of how virtual meetings have operated at the Council. And if Councillor McGregor is happy to accept a change to his amendment, I would like to suggest that maybe we include a review of how, and this could be done by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, a review of how virtual meetings have worked within this council since they've been instituted. And I just wonder whether Councillor McGregor might accept that within his amendment.
Councillor McGregor?
Yes.
Simple as that. Councillor Dawes, as the proposer of the amendment, you would agree with that? Okay. Right, we have a proposer and second for an amendment. And to go to the vote on the amendment, please, on the amended proposal. All those in favour of Councillor McGregor's amendment? Against? Abstentions? That amendment is lost. Now we go to a vote on the motion that Councillor Connett put forward. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much. That's the item completed. Now we move on to item 10, which is the councillors' questions. And first of all, we have a question from Councillor Swain. And Councillor Swain, you've had a long and detailed answer to that. Can I? We're falling to bits here. Sorry, Councillor Swain, after that interruption, would you like to
Thank you, Chair.
comment on the answer, please?
I do have a supplementary question. Thank you for the clarification about the Human Rights Act 1998, which incorporated the European Convention on Human Rights into British law. Thank you also for the clarification that the rules of debate in this chamber do not violate those rights. Would the portfolio holder agree with me that these rights, including the right to protest without fear of prosecution or retribution, are important? We must look after them, especially since they're no longer protected by EU membership. Would he also join me in condemning legislation that undermines these rights, such as the Nationality and Borders Bill, which criminalised saving lives at sea, and the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, which creates new offences for process that is too loud or has an impact. Would the portfolio holder agree?
Councillor Keeling? To the right.
A simple answer to that is yes and yes.
Okay, thank you. Are you happy with that response, Councillor Swain? Thank you very much. Right. Okay, we move on now to the next questions. Councillor McGregor, I think you have one or two here. Councillor McGregor, have you got any supplementaries to your questions in order, please?
I have question one. I've got the response, but not the answer. When will this council get an understanding, a full detailed understanding of what a storm event is as detailed by the Environment Agency?
That's the supplementary to question one.
That's the supplementary to question one.
I believe Councillor Taylor. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I would ask Councillor McGregor to look at the answer to the original question stated within that. Thank you.
Okay. Question two. Have you got a supplementary?
Again, I have a response but not an answer. The designated storm events are not the same as the releases and discharges as detailed by South West Water. I would like to know when this council will get a full understanding of when storm events are occurring as detailed by the Environment Agency and as recommended by the regulatory body, Ofwat.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. As stated in the original answer, the Timmouth District Council does not have regulatory authority in relation to discharges. However, South West Water does publish this information on an annual basis, and there is a link in the written response.
Thank you very much. Councillor 3, have you supplementary, Councillor McGregor?
I do, and quite clearly the responses so far show a lack of understanding of this council's responsibilities in relation to the environment. I think the question would be, when will this council publish a full list of its requirements in relation to pollution of waterways for members of the public and councillors to look at?
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. We are all very concerned about the way that our waters are polluted. However, it is not the responsibility of this authority. It's up to the Environment Agency and Ofwat to take care of these matters. The chair of Ofwat has recently said, regarding a recent investigation, we've launched an investigation relating to companies' management of their wastewater treatment works, which will examine any instance of systematic management failure or the misreporting of data. If we find reason to act, Ofwat will use our full range of powers to hold companies to account for their failures and to require them to put things right in very short order. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And question 5, I presume you have a supplementary, Councillor McGregor?
Again, not having an answer, but having got a response, my question would be, is when is the executive member for planning going to actually admit that this council does have regulatory requirements in respect of the environment, especially relating to waterways? The Pollution of Rivers Act, for instance, is something that comes under this council's remit as an environmental health body.
Councillor Taylor.
I'll be issuing a written response in due course.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Okay, Councillor McGregor.
Last question, you'll be pleased to hear. My supplementary is this. I mean, the responses that I've received so far have been a clear attempt to finesse the answers, and very much a case of, it's not my problem. So when is it going to be our problem? When we lose the economy, when we lose the visitors, and we lose confidence in the public health system within the local district. I often hear that we're going to boost the economy, but if we're losing visitors and people who come here for water sports, surfing, kayaking, etc., because the first thing that they'll get when they get here is an E. coli infection or salmonella or some other dreaded lurgy that comes from fecal waste being dumped into the estuaries around Teignbridge and other water courses. When are we going to act, and when will we see results?
Do you have a response, Councillor Taylor?
I do, and the answer to this is in the written response already. The authority is engaged with South West Water on the production of their drainage and wastewater management plans, and will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Councillor McGregor. I believe now that has come to the end of the meeting for this morning. I'm sorry everyone was a little bit cold, but that is the way it has to be at the moment. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and safe journey home. Thank you very much. Thank you.